All right. All right. Sorry for the delay, everybody. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties here where we switched over as you all know, we switched over the website a little bit. So, first one since we've, kind of switched it completely over. So, sorry for the delay there. If you would just give me a quick confirmation that you can hear me if you're on here. Let me know that you can hear and see me. And then we'll once I get confirmation, we'll get started here. All right, awesome. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, so Rick, you asked, how do I get recorded? How do I get to recorded office hours? Yes. So what you need to do is you go to the instruction tab on the website. Then from the drop down there, you select office hours, then office hours highlights. Then once you're on the office hours highlights page, you scroll to the bottom of that page and you'll see the playlist of all the past office hours. So you can go back there and watch till your heart is content. You can watch a lot of. There's probably, I think, the most we can put on there at a time is 500. So you can watch the last 500 office hours if you would like to. So yeah, but if you have questions right now, we can answer them. And yeah, let's get it going. No big deal if you don't have any questions or anything. I'll just be like checking emails and stuff. So yeah, bring it on if you want. All right. So Eric says, I have a tendency to hook my drives after a shallowing course. Any tips to straighten out a bit? Thank you. Yeah. So I would work through that third video of the shallowing fix. So it sounds like you've worked through maybe drill one and drill two, or possibly just drill one. Drill number three, that's where you straighten it out. So I would go to that course and work through drill number three in the 20-minute shallowing fix. Yeah, because really what we're trying to do, the best way to fix anything, like if you're not shallowing out the club, um, you're coming down steep, maybe you're hitting pulls, slices, pull hooks. The best way to work on that is to really kind of go extreme and work on getting the ball to start to the right and hook, right? So that's what I first make sure that you're doing, that you're getting the ball that's not just hooking. So if it's starting straight and hooking, or starting to the left and hooking, assuming that you're right-handed, you're not ready for drill number two yet, or drill number three, excuse me. Drill number two is where you get 10 in a row that start to the right and curve back to the left for a right-handed golfer. Once you have that, then you are ready for drill number three, right? So that's what I would continue to work through. I would complete the 20-minute shallowing course. If you complete it, then you'll be in good shape there. All right, if you're just hopping on the office hours, I'm just waiting for more questions to be asked. I've had a couple so far, so if you got questions, now's a great time to ask. If not, no big deal. I'm just gonna be checking emails and stuff. So go as you will. Mm. All right, if you're just hopping onto the office hours, I'm just waiting for a question to be asked. So if you have a question, now is a great time to ask. If not, no big deal. All right, so we got a question from Ed V says, I have been shanking my wedges. What am I doing wrong? So the first thing to keep in mind here is that your wedge is going to be the most likely club that you're going to shank. All right, so let's talk about why that is. Well, the reason is that it has the most pronounced hosel, right? So if you look at kind of like a driver, it'd be difficult to shank a driver, right? The hosel is up here; it doesn't like protrude out. But because a wedge has that loft, right? Now you have this hosel that is basically exposed that you can more easily hit. So it's not uncommon to have shanks on your wedges and then hit everything else, decently solid, right? So what typically happens when you shank a wedge? Well, the first thing that I typically see is our hips are moving closer to the ball throughout the motion, right? So what I mean by that is maybe you'll be like this. And then when you bring it back, your hips kind of move forward, and then they kind of continue to move forward, right? So if my body is moving toward the ball, I'm going to tend to hit it off the hosel, right? So that's like the number one thing that I see. Now, it's hard to say exactly what you're doing without seeing your swing, but that's like the number one thing that I see. Now, what goes along with that as well is just standing, really just kind of setting up with your hands too close to you, right? So imagine, I'm set up and I'm like this, and I try to keep my hands kind of that close to me. Well, if I do that and I move my hips at all toward the ball, I'm going to tend to move that hosel toward the ball, and I'm going to tend to shank it. So give yourself some space, right? Now, that doesn't mean you can't stand close to it, right? You've heard me talk about how that's kind of like a chipping cheat code, is to stand a little bit closer to it. The reason why is it gets it a little bit more toe down, and it makes it easier to get this leading edge underneath the ball, right? If I set up like this and it's flush, right, I have to get the entire leading edge underneath the ball, and that's a little bit more difficult than just getting like this part of the leading edge underneath the ball. So it just makes it a little bit easier, and also it doesn't tend to want to grab as much. The ground doesn't tend to want to grab the club as much when it's just this much, right? And you'll play it a little bit off the toe when you do that. So even then, even if I stand a little bit closer to it, I still want to have my hands kind of out, give myself about a fist width between my hands and my legs there. And I just want to kind of keep it that way. So if I stand closer, I don't want to be like this. I'm trying to get the toe down. I'm going to get my hands a little bit farther, right? Now, if you have a lie where the ball is kind of sitting up, you don't need to do that. You can kind of set up like this, but you still want to give your hands that space. So that's really kind of the number one thing that I see, is just the hands being too close to you in general, and then you're taking away that space throughout the motion of the chip, all right? The second biggest thing that I see is that the path of the club coming into the ball is off, right? I would try to have a little bit more of kind of a neutral path to the ball. What I mean by that is I want to imagine, right, if I grab an alignment stick here, oops, kicked my ball on accident. So I grab an alignment stick. I'm going to put this alignment stick here. What we want to imagine here is that this stick is pointed directly at the target, right? So what I kind of want to imagine is that when I'm coming down, I want my club to kind of work from inside the stick, hit the ball, then work back to the inside of the stick. That means that I have a fairly neutral path down to the ball. Now, if it's a little bit in to out or a little bit out to in, that's fine too. But if we get excessive where we're outside the stick to inside the stick, or inside the stick to outside the stick, that can lead to those hosel strikes. So the reason why an in to out swing, too much in to out, can cause the hosel strike is because my club, the sweet spot, is just working out away from me too much. And when that happens, that brings that hosel more into play, right? Now, the reason why a too much out to in, or trying to cut across it too much out to in, can lead to that is that you're really making your sweet spot a lot smaller when you do that. Because if you imagine here, this would be kind of like a neutral path, square face coming into the ball. So that's, imagine, the camera here is the ball. That's what's coming at the ball, right? Well, now, if I cut across and then I also have the face open to that path, now this is what's coming at the ball. Well, look what's in the way. The hosel is in the way here, and I only have this small amount of sweet spot to hit. My best case scenario is I'm probably going to hit it a little bit off the toe, right? So cutting across it with an open face too much, that can also lead to those hosel strikes. So those would be the things that I'd be looking at. When you look at yourself on video, that'd be the way to kind of determine what the problem is here. Look at yourself on video from down the line here, and you'll be able to clearly see, okay, am I swinging it too much from the inside, too much out to in? You can draw a little line on your backside here. The app that I would recommend to use to record and analyze your swing is OnForm, OnForm. It is a app that's available for both Apple devices and Android. And it's not free. They will give you a free trial, but I think once you go through the free trial, I think it's like a 2-week free trial, and that's $5 a month, right? which if you're serious about your golf game and you want to analyze your swing and see what's going on there and keep tabs on it, I think that that's a great price, right, to pay for it. And this is what we use for the online lessons as well, the swing reviews, the unlimited swing reviews. When you sign up for the unlimited swing reviews, you don't have to pay the fee. It's included with the price for the online lessons. But that's what I would do. I draw a little vertical line on your backside and see how you are moving. See how your backside is moving in relationship to that line throughout the motion. So let's say your hips are moving toward the ball, then what I would try to feel like is that you're driving those hips away. Like you're kind of chipping like this. That's what it would feel like. That doesn't mean that's necessarily what you're going to do, but I would try to make sure that you're not getting out on your toes, right? You're driving those hips back throughout the motion to give you that space, right? And then let's say it's cutting across the ball. Then I would try to feel like you're swinging from the inside with a closed face. I would almost try to feel like you're drawing your chip shots, right? And if it's the opposite, if you're swinging too much from the inside, then I would almost try to feel like you're slicing those chip shots to kind of neutralize it, and then make your adjustments based on what you're seeing on the video. Okie dokie. See if there's any new questions here. All right, so no new questions. I'm just kind of filling time here with some past questions maybe you guys would enjoy. That was a question from Monday. All right, so we got a question from LL says, what is your best advice for improving lag putting? So one of the biggest issues that I see with people struggling with lag putting, put this away real quick, is we got to have the right mindset, right? So what are we trying to do with a lag putt, right? We're trying to two putt it, really, is what we're trying to do. That's the ultimate goal, is to two putt it, right? So when your ultimate goal is to two putt it, that old saying of you miss 100% of the putts that you leave short, you kind of have to throw that away. Because yes, that is true. That is 100% true. You will miss 100% of the putts that you leave short of the hole, but that is not the goal. The goal of when you get outside of 20 feet, 25 feet, your goal really isn't to make the putt, right? Your goal is to not three putt, essentially. Your goal is to two putt it. So when that is your goal, you need to kind of look at a 3-foot circle. Imagine a 3-foot circle around that hole, and you're just trying to get that within that 3-foot circle. And the reason why it's a 3-foot circle is because you're going to make almost every single one of those, right? If you get it within that 3-foot circle, you're nearly guaranteed to two putt, right? And if you make it, if you get really good at getting it within that 3-foot circle, you're going to get it in the hole sometimes. And that's just a bonus. That's just an added bonus, right? When you make it. But if you have the mindset, hey, I'm going to miss 100% of the putts that I leave short, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to be really focused on getting it to the hole. And then you're going to end up with a lot of long comebackers, right? So if you shift your focus to, hey, I want I want the putt to stop rolling at the hole. That's when I want it to stop rolling, right? And if that means that sometimes I'm going to end up a little bit short, then that is totally fine. But if your mindset is to, hey, I need to make sure I get the ball to the hole, and in order to do that, it actually needs to roll past the hole. Well, then that shifts everything past the hole. So you're going to end up with some putts that are at, the putts that you don't quite get there are probably still, or the putts that you don't quite hit as hard as you're trying to will end up pretty much at the hole. And the ones that you hit a little bit too hard will end up 6 feet by the hole. And you're going to miss some 6-footers, right? You're definitely going to miss some of those, right? So that's really kind of one of the biggest things I would say is think about what you're actually trying to do. Think about getting the ball to die to the hole. If you hit a 25-foot putt and you leave it 2 feet short of the hole, dead in the center, that is a fantastic putt because that is a guaranteed 2-putt. It's basically a good guaranteed 2-putt. And if you're playing in a group with your buddies, I would imagine you wouldn't even have to putt that. They just say, pick it up and let's move on, right? So that's kind of the mindset that you want to have with it. Now, everything else is really just about controlling the speed. That's the thing too, is that lag putting is much more about controlling the speed than being precise with the line, right? Shorter putts, you want to be precise with your line and the speed. But I mean, obviously the line is important with these lag putts, but the speed is so much more important than anything else. Because when you think about it, right, in putting, right, I'm not going to miss a 25-foot putt 6 feet to the right. I'm typically not going to miss. Now, if it's a big, heavy breaker or something like that, maybe. But let's imagine I have a dead, flat, straight putt, right? Not going to leave the face open so much. Most golfers are just not going to leave the face open so much that they're going to miss it 6 feet to the right, right? We are much more likely to leave it 6 feet short or 6 feet long. Much, much more likely, right, than to miss it 6 feet right or left. So pick a line, right? Pick a line, trust that line, right? And then when you're over the ball, your entire focus just needs to be getting the ball to roll the distance that you want it to. So a lot of it is really just mindset more than anything else. The last thing I will say about lag putting is to make sure that you're putting a good roll on the ball. Because a lot of times this doesn't show up in shorter putting, but it shows it's much more. It makes a bigger difference with the longer putting. So what I mean is, and there's a way you can kind of look at this as well. So generally what we want is we want the ball. Let me get closer here. So if we kind of look at this line across the ball here, right? So when the putter comes in and hits this ball, we want this ball to actually kind of lift up out of the grass and kind of, ideally, it would kind of knuckle or kind of tumble forward. If it gets a little bit of backspin like that, that's fine. Not that big a deal. But ideally, it would kind of knuckle or it would kind of tumble forward. And then it would land and start rolling. But what may be happening that isn't necessarily showing up on the shorter putts is if you come in and you have too much loft, you're delivering too much loft to the ball, it may get too high up, right? It may lift the ball too much in the air, and it may actually end up backspinning a little bit too much, and then that's going to bounce, and it's not going to roll as far, right? You're taking the energy out of the ball a little bit, right? On the other side of that, if I don't deliver enough loft, and I'm basically hitting the ball into the ground, then the ball's just going to start bouncing everywhere, right? So what you can do, there's several ways you can kind of look at this. The easiest way is just to go to your practice putting green early in the morning before it's been mowed, when it's got dew on the greens. And basically what you can see in the dew markings when you putt it, that it's lifting up in the air. If it's bouncing a bunch, ideally what it would do is it would lift up out of the air a little bit, and then it would kind of not bounce around and just kind of start rolling really nicely. You can also use your phone, get the slow motion camera going, and set it up kind of to the side of the ball and video the ball, the contact with the ball, and see how that ball is reacting in the air. And basically, if you're delivering too much loft and that ball is kind of coming up and back spinning a little bit, then I would maybe get your hands a little bit more forward. Maybe you had the ball not as far forward in your stance, so that way you're not delivering as much loft, right? And on the other side of that, if you're bouncing the ball into the ground, and you're seeing that when you bounce it in the ground, it starts hopping right away, then I may put the ball a little bit more forward in the stance. If you have a big forward press, I'd maybe ease off of that forward press a little bit to get that loft where it needs to be. Also, getting professionally fitted for a putter is also something that I would recommend doing, because they're going to dial in that loft for you with how you're putting. Now, if you go and you change your putting style, you decide I'm going to have my hands more forward, that can kind of skew that a little bit, because if you're fitted for a certain way of delivering the putter and then you change the way you deliver the putter, well, now your fitting isn't really as good. So those would be the things I would look at for getting better at lag putting. All right, so we got a question from Dan S. Says, my longest drives are when I pull it. Why is that? So let's talk about that a little bit. So what causes a pull, right? Let's first talk about that, because that's going to help us understand what's going on here. So I'm going to use an alignment stick here. And so let's imagine this alignment stick is pointed at the target, all right? Well, a pull is caused when my club is coming down from outside that target line to inside the target line through impact. And then my club face is in line with the direction that my club head is moving, right? So to put numbers on it, you could say if I'm swinging 6 degrees out to in, and then my club face is 6 degrees closed, that's going to create a pull that's going to go 6 degrees to the left, right, for a right-handed golfer, right? Well, the alternative to your pull is more than likely a slice, right? Because generally our path does not change that much from swing to swing when we're trying to have the same intention. So what's likely happening when you're not hitting your pull is your path is still going from outside the ball to inside the ball, but now your face might be more square to the target. And that will create a slice, because my path is to the left, but my face is square, which is open to my path, which is going to create that slice spin. So that's part of what's going to lose distance, is we're basically cutting across the ball and not hitting it with with a good compression, right? We're kind of sliding across it. That's going to tend to lead to less distance. The other thing is that when you cut across the ball with an open face, the club face is basically essentially a little bit smaller based on what's coming at the ball. So you also may not be hitting it as well in the sweet spot, right? So when you square up your face with your path, you're using the entire club face, which can help you to be able to hit longer drives, right? So that's also a part of it. The other thing to think about is when you slice the ball, you're opening the face to the path. When you open the face, it also adds loft. And when you add loft, you will have less compression and more spin, right? And that's also going to lead to less distance. So this is why part of the reason why we promote shallowing out the club plenty, so that way you can hit a draw. And to hit a draw, what has to happen? We have to close the face of the path. Well, when you close the face of the path, you are going to de-loft the face, which is going to give you more compression, and you're also going to have less spin because you have less loft, right? The whole reason why your wedge spins more than your 5-iron, right? A 5-iron has less loft, so it's going to spin less, right? So because of that, you're going to have more compression, less spin. That's typically going to lead to longer distances, right? So what I would recommend doing to get to where, hey, I'm not just pulling it and hitting great drives, and the other times I slice it. What I'd recommend doing is working through the 20-minute shallowing fix with your driver and get to where you can get that club to work from the inside and turn over, and then now all your drives are long, and it's not just the times when you pull it, right? And also when you pull it, I'm guessing it's ending up not necessarily where you're wanting it to go. Hopefully those are ending up maybe on the left side of the fairway, or worst in the rough. But a lot of times slicers that tend to pull it, sometimes a lot of times they aim left because they're playing it to slice, and then when they pull it, it ends up way left, right? So hopefully that's not the case. But if you can get to where you're drawing it, it's ball starting down the right side, ending up down the middle. That's going to be ideal because you're going to get that that really good compression and less spin on the ball. As a bonus tip here, I want to talk about ball position because a lot of people tend to slice their driver or tend to get their path working out to in too much with their driver because the ball position's really far forward. Because we've always heard, right, you want to have that ball position forward, off of the left heel or whatever, left foot, so that way you can hit up on it. And if you hit up on it, you can get a high launch. Now, you don't necessarily get low spin. It depends on how you deliver the club. But you can get that high launch, and that may help you to hit the ball farther. It can help you hit the ball farther, but it's not as much as what you would think, right? You're going to be, if you're putting the ball forward at the expense of swinging too much out to in and hitting a big slice, right, and you're not able to get that club to work down to the ball properly, then it's actually hurting you more than it is helping you. So what I would do, if you're someone who puts the ball really far forward in your stance, like off of the left foot, off of the lead foot here, and you're hitting pulls and slices, move the ball back a little bit. Just move it like 2 balls back and see what that does. Because the more back in your stance the ball is, it's much easier to get that club to work from the inside and shallow out. It's much easier, right? So you got to kind of find that happy medium between, okay, how far forward should my ball position be? And to be able to hit up on the ball, but also how far back does it need to be so that way I can actually attack the ball the way they would be the most effective. So play around with that ball position as well, and see if that can help you. Now, I'm not saying put it way back off your back foot or necessarily even in the middle of your stance, but a little bit forward of the middle of the stance, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in between there. A lot of golfers, in my experience, from what I've seen, would benefit greatly from not having the ball position so far forward in their stance because they're just slicing the ball with the ball forward in the stance instead of actually making good contact and also getting their face and their path lined up with each other so that way they can hit a solid shot in the right direction. So it may go lower than what you're used to, but it's not going to take that much off that much distance off, and you're likely going to hit it much straighter. And also, for days when it's windy out there, it's going to be a better wind ball too, right? So something to consider when you're struggling with a slice as well. I have a lot of students that I work with struggle with slice with the driver. We literally all we did was just put the ball position 2-3 balls back of where they had it, and now all of a sudden they're hitting it great. Right? So something to consider if you're in that position. All right, let's see if there's any new questions in there. All right, so no new questions at the moment. All right, so we got a question from Larry. It says, "How far from the ball do you recommend standing?" So this is gonna vary from club to club because the clubs are different lengths, right? So if you look here, this is basically like a pitching wedge, right? That's about how far I'd be standing away. And then if I grab this driver here, you can see how the ball is going to be quite a bit farther away from me with the driver because it's just such a longer club. So there isn't like a set distance, like, hey, I'm standing 27 inches away from the ball every single time. It's going to vary from club to club, right? So that's kind of the first thing that we want to understand. But let's kind of go over how we want to kind of set up to the ball here to get a good distance away. And also, I want to mention there is nothing that's in the rules of golf that say you have to stand a certain distance. There are elite golfers that stand really close to the golf ball. Go look at Jon Rahm. Go search Jon Rahm on YouTube and look how stinking close he stands to the ball. I mean, his hands are in his lap. Now, I don't generally recommend that for most people because I think most people are going to get some hosel rockets when they do that. But Jon Rahm's really good at getting his body out of the way, and obviously that works really well for him. On the other side of that, U.S. Open champion Bryson DeChambeau, he stands quite a bit farther away from the ball, right? And obviously that works really good for him, right? So there's no set distance, but what I'm going to go over here is going to help you to kind of give you a general idea, and then you can kind of tweak it to your liking that fits what works best for you, all right? So first and foremost, what I want you to do is I just want you to get in your stance width, right? Stand straight up, and I want you to relax your shoulders. Just let your shoulders relax, all right? Let your arms kind of hang down from your shoulder sockets like they're wet noodles, right? That's all I'm trying to do here, right? The next step is I'm going to just put a little bit of flex in my knees. This flex in the knees is just to put us in a nice athletic position. So if you imagine something was coming at you and you were trying to like dodge it and move out of the way, right? We wouldn't stand with our legs straight and we wouldn't get way down like this. We would bend our knees a little bit so that way we can react quickly. We want to do the same thing in the golf swing. We want to be an athlete in the golf swing. So that's the same thing that we want to do. Generally, when we get that little flex in the knees, that puts the kneecaps right around, kind of straight up from the balls of the feet, right? So I'm going to put a little bit of flex on my knees. Again, I'm letting my arms hang straight down. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my hips back and my chest forward. And I want to maintain the equal pressure from my toes to my heels, right? So what I mean by that is I don't want to be here and then drive my hips back, my chest forward, and now most of my weight is in my heels, right? That means my hips are going to be too far back, right? And on the other side of that, I don't want to relax here, get a little bit of flex in the knees, and then push my hips back, my chest forward. But now all my weight's going in my toes, Well, that's because I'm pushing my chest too far forward, right? So I want to push my hips and my chest back, kind of hinging at my hips here, and I want to keep that pressure between my heels and my toes. I want to keep it pretty equal, right? So that would look something like this. Again, I'm going to relax the shoulders, a little bit of flex on the knees, push the hips back and the chest forward, and I'm going to stop when my hands hanging down here are roughly about a fist width in front of my legs, right? So that's right there. And again, I'm not trying to like keep my back straight or anything like that. My spine is relaxed. I want you to relax, right? You may have heard you gotta have like a straight line from your neck down to your backside. That could not be further from the truth. Go look at the posture of a lot of PGA Tour players. Look at it more closely. There are definitely some guys like Adam Scott. He definitely looks like he's very straight. But go look at like a Jack Nicklaus, right? Go look at a lot of these guys. They have rounded shoulders. Now, I'm not saying you want to be like this, right? They're just relaxed is what they are. And if you're relaxed and you're loose, that helps you to be more athletic, right? We don't want to be stiff as a board. If we're stiff as a board, we're gonna have a hard time being athletic in the golf swing, and that's really what it's all about. Hey, we don't want people to call golfers non-athletes. We're athletes, all right? So that's how we want to do this. So we're going to get a little bit of flex in the knees, relax those shoulders, push hips back, chest forward, and I'm going to have my hands roughly about fist width in front of my legs. And now I'm going to grab the club, and right there, that's how far I want to be from the ball, right? Now with the driver, it's going to be a hair different because like we saw before, the club is just so much longer, right, than the other ones. So because the club is so much longer, we're just going to stand our hips are going to move a little bit more forward. Our chest is going to be a little bit more up, and then we're going to reach just a little bit with our arms, right? So generally I would be like this, right? But if I'm like that with the driver, right, I'm too bent over, right? I'm not going to be able to make a real good swing from here. So I want to just have my hips forward a little bit, chest back, and I want to reach just a little bit. So you can see how I'm a little bit taller with the driver, and I'm reaching just a little bit more with the driver. My hands are just a little bit farther away from me with the driver, and that puts you in a really nice athletic position. All right, let's see if there's any new questions in there. If there are not, then we will wrap it up. All right, so no new questions in there. We'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.